The Egyptian military as an institution is powerful and rich and part of the ruling class in Egypt, due in large part, or at least in significant part, to American largesse. The United States gives the military roughly $1.3 billion annually. That largesse toward the military started mainly because of one thing, the Camp David Accord, signed in 1978. Camp David, of course, led to Egypt signing a peace treaty with Israel the following year. So the power and the wealth of the military in Egypt in large part derives from that country making peace with Israel. If the military wants to stay rich and powerful, why would it risk the source of that? Why do we keep hearing these dark hints that peace with Israel would be at risk if Egypt goes into some kind of military receivership? The Egyptian military is probably more invested in keeping peace with Israel than any other institution in the whole country. That said, on Sunday, the Israeli parliament increased its defense budget by $190 million, and the prime minister ordered the army to speed up construction of a 13-foot-tall radar-monitored fence along Israel's border with Egypt. Egypt's defense budget last year was about $4.5 billion. Roughly a quarter of that was American aid. That, again, is predicated on this country having a peace deal with Israel. So why the suspicion that if the Egyptian military takes charge, that peace agreement would be at risk? Joining us now is Shibli Talhami. He's the Anwar Sadat Professor for Peace and Development at the University of Maryland. He's also a non-resident senior fellow at the Savant Center at the Brookings Institution. Professor Talhami, thank you for joining us again tonight.
My pleasure, always.
Is the military key to understanding what happens next in Egypt?
No question. I think obviously first and foremost it depends on the people. What you have is, this is incredible. This is really a revolution of the people, and I've never seen anything like it in all the years, and I've never seen a historical period that resembled what we've seen, this incredible empowerment. The military is important. It's important because obviously any transfer of power is going to come with their consent, and clearly if the crowds swell tomorrow and there are challenges, they're going to be tested in ways they have not so far. If they fire, they lose the public, and they get on a course that is going to be disastrous. If they don't know what will come of it. So there's no question that they're central. But today really was very strange because the communique that was issued was reminiscent of the days of military coups. We've historically seen that in the Middle East. You have communique number 1 and then to be followed by number 2 and number 3 and number 4, usually when you take over. And then obviously all of the expectations where the president was going to relinquish power didn't happen. It is a very strange day, and I know I've heard Ambassador Shukri say that there's no division. Ambassador Shukri is an excellent diplomat who served his country, will continue to do so, but if there was a division, he would know. The events were particularly strange because there was also a delay in the president's delivery of the speech by about 45 minutes. So something happened there. We don't know what it is, and the next few hours are going to be very critical.
In terms of understanding the military's incentives here, because I agree with you that something happened. The number of sources that were telling not only NBC News but also every other asset organization, every other asset in the world looking for information about what was going to happen. The number of sources saying that Mubarak was going to step down is too many and too varied for that not to have been the real expectation that then suddenly changed. And there was that delay, and so much is still unexplained. I feel like understanding the military's incentives is maybe the only way to understand what's going to happen here. I know that the military has significant investment in a lot of different parts of the Egyptian economy. They're estimated to control anywhere from between 5% and 40% of the Egyptian economy. They're insinuated into every conceivable industry, including tourism. Could that affect the incentives of the military as an institution that might help us understanding what they're doing here?
It could. I doubt that's really a critical point right now. Everybody is fighting for their survival and asserting themselves in whatever regime emerges. The military in Egypt is going to be a central player in Egyptian politics for years to come. The Egyptian people expect them to, because they expect to have a strong country. They traditionally respect the military institution. So regardless, the military is going to be part of it. And in fact, the worst thing for them is to jeopardize the trust of the public in the short term. The problem, of course, is you have the 3 tiers. You've got the upper echelons, they are the president's best friends. You know, we talk about the military and the regime. Well, they are the regime. You know, when President Mubarak met in the morning before these events with anybody for breakfast, it was really the the Minister of Defense, Tantawi, who's now Deputy Prime Minister, and the Chief of Intelligence, now Vice President, Omar Suleiman. So these are his top friends. But in the middle levels, officers are always professional, well-trained. The rank and file are really of the people. So the military itself is very complicated. And in an environment like this, where everyone, every segment of society is out there on the streets in large numbers, they have to be part of this. And there were reports of officers taking their uniforms off and joining the demonstrators. So they have to worry about the loyalty of their soldiers in that environment. But I have to tell you something. You know, when I'm looking at this and I see the empowerment, I see the proud of being an Egyptian, people have tasted it. They've already won. It might take a day or two or a week or two. They've already won. But this scene of winning peacefully the way they have, this is bin Laden's nightmare. What we're seeing here is bin Laden's nightmare. And if they fail, it'll be our nightmare. Because there's a public empowerment. They expect change. It would be unbelievable if it could be achieved against the message of militancy through peaceful means of people just demanding the freedom publicly and gaining it. And if they fail, we're in for a lot of trouble.
Shibli Telhami, Anwar Sadat, Professor for Peace and Development at the University of Maryland, Fellow at the Brookings Institution. Thank you for joining us this evening, sir. Your insight is invaluable.
My pleasure.